What is something about yourself that sounds totally made up but is 100% real? At age 50, odd and with limited to no video game experience, my mother completed Mario 64 before I did, in about half the time it finally took me to do it. My brother is 31, I'm 19, and when he was born, his grandmother, we don't share the same father, bought him a Nintendo Entertainment System. My mother, not knowing what to do with it, turned it on and played Super Mario Bros. She spent 2 months every day trying to beat the game, even buying a strategy guide to go through it. She beat the game and never touched a video game again. My mom bought my brother and I a Sega. Then every night after we went to bed, she would play Sonic. As a kid, I thought she just loved playing games. As I got older, I realized she only did it so that when we asked her for help, she would be able to. A few years ago, for her birthday, I got her a Sega with Sonic and Sonic 2. I bought everything from the Sonic Edition Sega, just the box, no special skins back then, and everything that came in it. I spent months getting every individual piece, including the books, and I had to buy nearly everything separately because they aren't exactly producing them anymore, and people didn't exactly shook up on them as collectibles back in the day. By her birthday, I had it all assembled, some of it nearly tatters due to age and wear and tear, but I did it. My great-great-grandfather was a Pinkerton detective, acted on vaudeville, and has 5 wives in 2 different states that knew nothing of each other. He also slightly changed his last name each time and never got caught until Ancestry website happened. Sounds a bit like my great-grandfather. He had a wife in France and then 2 in the United States in neighboring countries. He was caught though. My great-grandmother was wife number 2. She found out about wife number 3 and divorced him. No one knew about the first wife in France until I pulled his service records from World War I. Did he ever encounter Vanderland or O'Driscoll gangs? A pelican engulfed my head with its massive f***ing beak when I was a small child. Pelicans are c***s. Having lived around pelicans, I can confirm this. Also, I'm sorry, I know that must have been traumatic, but I'm laughing so hard right now after reading this. Because I'm imagining a pelican trying to eat a child's head, like I'm actually in tears from your comment making me laugh so hard. It was super terrifying for little me at the time, but it makes for a great story now, so it's not all that bad. I had my tongue surgically enhanced for more reach and flexibility when I was 8. Edit. I'm super jazzed by how many of us are out there. Interesting, I've never met anyone that has had their tongue clipped. Had mine done as a toddler, and I guess they sort of overshot the mark because I ended up with a Gene Simmons style. Yeah, mine was bad enough that I couldn't really reach the back of my upper front teeth, so Elsie's were a particular issue until I had it done. I can smell some illnesses and chronic symptoms. My sense of smell is normally pretty average, but I can sometimes smell if a person is sick before they start showing symptoms, and have been able to predict 2 seizures, a diabetic blood sugar drop, and multiple chronic migraines before they happened. Are you a service dog? No, but if I could actually work as a service dog, that would be freaking awesome. Arrested and spent 3 days in a holding cell for a crime that I didn't commit. About a year after, the whole matter was done and dusted with. Mind you, I say didn't commit the crime, but I was involved in the story from start to finish. What was the crime you were accused of? My wife, then girlfriend, and I eloped. We crossed over 3 states in India over a 5-day period to get married. My father-in-law, then mortal nemesis, is a well-connected man. He got in touch with his contacts in the police department to try and get a hold of us and filed a formal complaint as part of due process. Long story short, we got married. The rather inept police couldn't find a couple of 21-year-olds. Over the next 4 months, all of it was sorted out. First, we were vilified, then the parents were mollified, etc., etc. But in the beautiful ending to that story, my father-in-law forgot to retract his complaint. Proceed to our first wedding anniversary, and we were taking a flight out of the country for a celebratory vacation. From Bombay Airport, India to Dubai Airport, the United Arab Emirates. I was flagged at immigration and was taken across to a cell where I was duly arrested. My crime? Kidnapping. I was being accused of having kidnapped the lady I was now married to. I'm glad you're okay, and frankly, I'm glad that Stockholm Syndrome is at least taken seriously, albeit disastrously applied. Dude, make a movie. I can't look left. Seriously. I'm not an ambi-looker. It's like the Zoolander of birth defects. It's called Duane syndrome, and my left eye can turn left, so if I try to look to my left, I see double. Growing up, my parents raised me to believe it was a party trick and not a disability, so I would always show it off to friends, which in retrospect I think was pretty sweet. Edit. My mom discovered that something was off when I was a baby, and she was doing the airplane motion with the spoon of baby food to the left. My left eye was not cooperating. Props to your parents for expert handling that situation. You probably grew without even thinking you had any sort of disability and found out until you were old enough and it didn't matter anymore. Wow, I can't look up. We should form a club. Together we'll be able to see everywhere. Mine is called Perina's syndrome, if I remember well. I've literally never been sick, or at least never showed symptoms of being sick. No colds, no fevers, no viruses, no flu even. I really don't know what it's like to be sick or get sick, and frankly, I hope I never do. I'd sure to be ironic if the first time I got sick was now. Edit. I'm 30 years old, by the way. That was probably worth mentioning. I have phytophotodermatitis, which is a big fancy word for I can't get acidic juices, lemons, limes, apples, oranges, etc., on my skin and go out in the sun. Turns my skin brown like a rash. Doesn't hurt or itch, just discoloration. Happened 3 or 4 times in my life. Is it permanent, or will this discoloration fade? It goes away in about a week. It's real splotchy looking, not a rash with a border, if that makes sense. Kinda blends out. Out of curiosity, have you also been in 3 fatal train accidents and never had a scratch? Or been in contact with a man who runs a comic book store and has extremely brittle bones? I've been in 3 fatal train accidents, never had a scratch. Found the star of Unbreakable. Have you ever met a Mr. Glass? All 3 trains died so that he could leave. He wasn't on any of those trains. Edit. Obligatory, effusive, thankful acknowledgement. I'm blind. Many online commenters think that I'm lying. If I wanna lie, I would rather tell anyone that I am a rich traveler. I cannot see 3D effects in movies or games. I didn't know that until a friend showed me his new Nintendo 3DS. And I asked him whether this thing was a scam because it didn't look any different to me than a normal DS. We had a fight over this because we both thought the other one was bullshitting him. You're holding it wrong. How the f*** do you not see this? Are you f***ing kidding me right now? There's nothing 3D about this thing. Same. I always thought it had to do with being colorblind when I was younger since they used the colored lenses. Years later, I had my vision checked where they used 2 images, one for either eye, to check depth perception, and I failed miserably. How's your depth perception? I was shooting some stuff in my village and a bullet ricocheted and hit me in the torso. I was afraid my parents would kill me if they found out I was young, so I used a knife and tweezers to remove the fragment and stapler to stitch it up, and then covered the wound, and they never found out until a few years later when I told them. That's savage, dude. The motive was childish fear of the sleeper, though. Also, I need to say that I don't feel pain to the extent most people do, which has caused some unnecessary burns when cooking and other injuries. So the pain of stitching and cutting wasn't that great. Digging for the fragments was a real bitch though. Reading these comments made realize how boring I am. I've skinned and dismembered a human corpse. This freaks a lot of people out, but it is actually more common than most people realize. You're a doctor, right? This is included in basic medical schooling. My father is a doctor and he had done the same thing. Bingo! Never a doctor, but I did go through med school. Now I work in a totally different field, so when I mention this fact to friends or co-workers, they never make the connection and I just watch their brains freeze.